Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, a great day for Africa, says Donald Trump, as President Felix Tshisekedi and Rwanda's Paul Kagame sign a precarious peace deal, hope to end the M23 conflict and deliver more mineral access to the United States. Also, the peace brokering sits uncomfortably alongside Trump's description of US Somali communities as garbage. Community leaders there say that he is bigoted and xenophobic. And in anticipation of AFCON, it's time to break down the promise, passion and potential of Africa's biggest footballing bonanza. Fewer than 10 days to go now until kickoff in Morocco, and there is everything to play for. But first, the peace deal signed in Washington between Congolese President Felix Tshisekedi and his Rwandan counterpart Paul Kagame rests on fragile hopes of ending the M23 rebel conflict in eastern DRC that's escalated this year and cost thousands of lives. Now, the agreement was brokered by US President Donald Trump. He said that they are succeeding where others have failed. But the pact does start off on shaky ground, as clashes between Congolese soldiers and the M23 are still happening. But the deal may still represent progress. And Washington will also get something out of it. Our Fraser Jackson's been following for us. Fraser, so what is it that Washington has brokered? And to be honest, why is Washington brokering?
Well, the short answer is minerals, and a lot of minerals. $24 trillion is the estimated value of minerals that are inside DRC. Now, not all of them are in the east of the country, but this represents a significant deal for the US, but also for both parties on the other side of this deal as well. Now, effectively, this deal brokers a kind of knitting together of the economies of Rwanda and DR Congo as well. The idea being that if there's an economic interest at stake, that will lead to a lasting peace, because of course money talks, and Donald Trump said that himself, that he believes there's a lot of money on the line here. So the idea is to knit the two countries together economically, and that will underpin the security agreement that they have also signed. The security agreement being that Rwandan troops will leave eastern DR Congo, and also the rebel groups M23 and the FDLR will also put down their weapons and be disbanded. That, though, has kind of been a source of contention, because at the moment there's been a bit of back and forth between the two countries. The violence is ongoing still, and Rwanda says that they'll only leave the country once the forces that they see as a threat, the FDLR, have put down their arms. So there's a bit of a kind of horse and the cart situation happening here at the moment. But Donald Trump believes that the monetary value at stake here will be enough to get the security aspect of this deal over the line, which will then bring in investment from the US companies as well, and will keep this peace deal in place.
So it's been a long and tense run up to this signing. You're right there at the heart of things in Washington, running around between all the camps. Any interesting or unusual takes on this situation that you've come across that have surprised you?
Yeah, I've been acting as the White House's foreign pooler today. So in that capacity, I've been talking to the Congolese side and the Rwandan side as well. I should note that the Rwandan side has been very quiet and kind of hesitant to talk about this deal. Likewise, the Congolese were not willing to let Felix Tshisekedi speak to us, but they have spoken to us on a lower level, in other ministerial levels. I've been talking to some officials there as well. And I think what's been really interesting has been the amount of distrust that still exists towards Rwanda from the Congolese side, and of course it's believed that it goes the other way as well. There is still a significant amount of distrust between these two parties. The Congolese officials that I've been speaking to have said that they'll only be able to uphold this deal if indeed Rwanda holds up its end of the bargain and does indeed withdraw from eastern DRC.
Thanks very much, Fraser Jackson. They're mentioning some of the distrust that still exists amidst these negotiations. Back in DR Congo, that is reflected in the responses to the deal by many Congolese. That is where our Emmett Livingston is.
There is a great deal of criticism in Congo regarding this deal, including from opposition parties and civil society groups. Some think the country is being sold out. Congo is trying to open up its important mining sector to US companies in order to garner US support. Another strand of criticism points out that there's nothing in the deal that forces Rwanda to withdraw or the M23 to surrender. And not much has changed on the ground since the peace process began either. There's been continued heavy fighting, including this week. Congo's President Felix Tshisekedi has said that he truly hopes the deal will lead to peace. And he was clear that that means the departure of Rwandan troops. The problem is how to enforce this. On Wednesday night, ahead of the signing, a spokeswoman for Tshisekedi explained how the Congolese government viewed the deal. She said that Congo expects the US to act if Rwanda doesn't abide by the deal, implying that the US would do so because it's interested in Congolese mineral resources.
And on the other side of things, our Juliet Montier has been tracking responses in Rwanda.
This signing has been described by Yolande Makolo, the influential government spokesperson, as the best chance for stability in the region. She praised the decision to anchor this peace in economic cooperation and, crucially, to tackle the roots of the conflict. For Rwanda, that means confronting the armed groups operating in eastern DRC, with one group in the spotlight, seen here as a direct threat to national security, the FDLR, funded by former Hutu leaders linked to the 1994 genocide. Kigali says it will only lift its defensive measures once they are neutralized, a condition laid out in the agreement. But all of this is unfolding in a climate of deep mistrust. Just recently, President Paul Kagame voiced doubts over where this process is heading, saying success hinges on Kinshasa keeping its word. And in the local media, analysts are pointing back to a long trail of similar past deals, all of them unsuccessful.
Well, Trump's bid for peace in East Africa comes just days after he publicly insulted Somalis living in the United States and said that he did not want them there. The attempt has, unsurprisingly, not gone down well.
After President Donald Trump called the US's Somali communities garbage, its leaders were quick to hit back.
It has always had very bigoted, xenophobic, Islamophobic comments when it comes to people who are of Muslim faith or people who are black. We've seen him call African nations as shitholes, and so it's not really surprising.
Trump's attacks on the Somali diaspora came as immigration authorities were reported to be planning a crackdown against Minnesota's large Somali community. In Minneapolis, many are staying home.
Collectively, the Somali community is fearful. And you could see around the mall a lot of vacant stores, a lot of closed stores, and no foot traffic. People are hiding in their homes.
Outrage over Trump's words is also being echoed in Somalia itself.
This is intolerable. Trump insults Somalis several times a day, calling us garbage and other derogatory names we can no longer tolerate.
Trump's comments are a blatant offense to Somalis. This isn't the language expected from a president.
Somali refugees began arriving in the US in the 1990s after the outbreak of a brutal civil war. Today, Minnesota is home to roughly 80,000 people of Somali ancestry, of which 58% were born in the United States.
Well, Thursday saw Kenya sign a $2.5 billion health deal with the US, meant to replace some of the agreements lost with the dismantling of the USAID earlier this year. President William Ruto and US Secretary of State Marco Rubio say that the US will contribute $1.7 billion to the total amount, with the money going towards disease prevention and treatment. Well, the countdown to AFCON is picking up in earnest. Fewer than 10 days to go now, and the Africa Cup of Nations kicks off in Morocco on the 21st. 24 countries with it all to play for. Now, there is some discontent rumbling around this week from coaches over FIFA's call on Wednesday to let star club players stay put until the 15th rather than the 8th before being released to join their national squads. But ultimately, the continent's biggest football tournament will be, as always, well furnished with talent. I'm joined now by Will Mbiakop, the executive chairman of the Africa Sports and Creative Institute, for this look ahead. Will, thank you so much for making the time to come and join me.
Thanks for having me.
So, I mentioned there, some of the rumblings of some hitches on the way in, but there's not long to go now. What's your take? Will Morocco be ready? Will everyone who needs to be there be there? Are we good to go?
It's fabulous time. It's really a fabulous time. And, Morocco is ready. I think the continent is ready. Again, fabulous time. But to be honest, the time has never been better to invest. Because when we look at those major events, we have to ask ourselves the questions, what is left for Africans from a socio-economic standpoint? And how Africa, with its leadership, public and private leaders, are going to fully harness the opportunities in the Africa sports industry. And this is why we actually, with our group, we're launching the Game Time Africa Summit that's going to be held in Rabat, Morocco, 15th, 16th of January, where we bring together the best of sports leaders and the best of investment in an objective of launching more partnership and unlocking more investment for the sector.
When it comes to actual fans, though, how do we make sure that as AFCON grows, every year we're seeing it attract more and more international attention, that the people at the heart of it, African fans, remain prioritized? We've heard this week some rumblings of discontent from francophone broadcasters, national broadcasters, who feel like they've been squeezed out of broadcasting rights because they've been only given broadcasting rights for 33 matches rather than the 52. I think that's worried a lot of sectors or onlookers of the African sporting community. What do you think needs to happen to both shepherd growth of events like AFCON, but also make sure that African grassroots fans are not squeezed out?
It's a great question. I think, first of all, we need to remember this is a business, right? We're talking about the biggest event, the biggest sporting event on the continent, a multi-million or multi-billion-dollar business that includes multiple verticals. And you're referring to the media rights, right? So the media rights has been sold to an organization called New World TV that then subcontract those rights to other platforms. I think to your questions overall, for the ecosystem to be elevated and fully harness all the opportunities, first of all, we need to have more data. People need to understand the game, as I said, so understand the market and understand who consumes sports, who practice sports. So number one is data. Number two, I would say, is to have more human capital trained. We need to have more skilled in the game. People need to be more skillful so that they can grasp and offer more solutions, including media solutions to the population. And lastly, it's investment. We recently saw the biggest deal ever on the media platform, Canal Plus number 2 acquiring MultiChoice number 1 in pay TV in Africa. And today we have a juggernaut number 1 now, a huge company called Canal Plus owning basically the largest portion of the market. So that is the reason why we need more investment so that we can see more and more companies coming up onto the game.
When it comes to the transferable benefit of growth for things like AFCON, how do you see the attention, money, investments, skills that are accompanied with it transferring to more widely into the African sporting landscape? Because, we have amazing talent, but often one of the things that constantly keeps coming up is the lack of infrastructure, the lack of professional support, the lack of even appreciation of some of the kind of more future-focused techniques when it comes to cultivating skills. How do you take what's going into AFCON and apply it elsewhere?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think the key things for me is to understand that sport is such a great catalyst for sustainable development. When you look at AFCON, for instance, you just mentioned AFCON and the stadium. It's not only AFCON, it's not only the stadium. When you look at infrastructure development, for instance, the way Morocco, for instance, has looked at it, it's a $5 billion investment. And when we think $5 billion, it's not only the stadium, but it's also the road, it's also the train, it's also the hospital, it's also the entertainment destination that's going to be developed around the stadium. That will generate major jobs, that will generate major revenue. And this model, in terms of partnerships with private public, has to be applied to other sectors, other sports as well.
Thank you so much for breaking that down for us. We'll be a cop in the first of our look ahead to AFCON shows. Well, thank you very much, though, for joining us for Eye on Africa. That's it. Join us again if you can. Take care.